It didn't start as a problem. At first, it was just helping out. My sister would call once in a while, usually sounding rushed, and ask if I could watch the kids for an hour or two. I lived 10 minutes away, worked from home most days, and at the time it felt like the normal thing families did for each other. So I said yes. Then the calls became texts. Then the texts became shorter, dropping the kids off in 20 boin. Eventually even that disappeared. Sometimes I'd just hear a car door slam outside my house and look up from my laptop to see my niece and nephew walking up the driveway with backpacks. My sister would already be pulling away. The first few times, I ran outside waving my phone, trying to ask how long she needed. She would shout something through the window like, "Just a few hours," before driving off. My parents thought it was sweet. Family helps family, my mom liked to say. What they didn't see was how often it happened. Weekdays, evenings, weekends when I had plans, sometimes during meetings where I had to mute my microphone while a 6-year-old asked loudly where the snacks were. I kept telling myself it was temporary. Kids grow up, situations change. But the pattern never changed. One Tuesday morning, I was halfway through preparing a presentation for work when I heard the familiar sound of tires on gravel outside my house. I looked out the window. My sister's SUV. The kids were already climbing out of the back seat. I stepped outside before they reached the porch. She was leaning across the passenger seat grabbing her purse. "Hey," she said casually. "I've got a couple things to take care of. Shouldn't be too long." I stayed by the car door. "I can't today," I said. She blinked like she hadn't heard me correctly. "What?" "I have meetings all afternoon," I said. "I really can't watch them." For a moment she just stared. Then her expression changed. "Seriously," she said. "They're already here?" "I know," I said. "But I didn't agree to this." Her voice got louder. "They're your niece and nephew. That doesn't mean you can just leave them without asking." The kids stood quietly near the front steps, watching both of us. She threw her hands up. Unbelievable. Then she leaned out the window toward the kids. "Go inside with your uncle." I shook my head. I said no. That's when the argument really started. She accused me of being selfish, of refusing to help family, of making her life harder when she was already doing everything alone. I told her she couldn't keep dropping them off without asking. At some point she pulled out her phone and started typing while still talking. "You know what?" she said finally. "Fine. If something happens to them today, that's on you." Then she drove away. The kids were still standing in my driveway. I called her immediately. No answer. I tried again. Straight to voicemail. 10 minutes later my phone buzzed with messages from my parents. "My dad, what's going on? Your sister says you refuse to take the kids." "My mom, you can't just leave children without supervision." I called them both. "She left them here," I said. "Well, of course she did," my mother replied. "You're supposed to watch them." I told her I couldn't today. There was a long pause. Then my father said something that made my stomach tighten. "She told us you were refusing to take responsibility for them." "They're not my responsibility," I said quietly. Before the conversation could go further, there was a knock on my door. 2 firm taps. I opened it to find a police officer standing on the porch. For a second none of us spoke. He glanced past me toward the living room where the kids were sitting on the couch watching cartoons. "Sir," he said calmly, "we received a call about 2 children being left in an unsafe situation." I took a breath. "They were left here," I said. "But not by me." He nodded slightly. "Can you explain what happened?" So I did. I told him about the pattern. The drop-offs without asking. The conversation that had happened in the driveway an hour earlier. I even showed him the unanswered calls and messages on my phone. The officer listened without interrupting. Then he asked a few simple questions. "Did you agree to watch the children today?" "No." "Did their parent leave after being told you couldn't?" "Wes." He wrote something in his notebook. A few minutes later another car pulled into the driveway. "My sister. She stepped out quickly, clearly irritated. "What is this?" she demanded as she walked toward the porch. The officer turned toward her. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "are these your children?" "Wes, and did you leave them here after being told the homeowner couldn't supervise them?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "Well, he's their uncle." "That wasn't my question," the officer said. The conversation shifted after that. Not dramatic, just factual. Responsibility for the kids was clarified in a way that didn't leave much room for interpretation. My sister eventually gathered them up, muttering under her breath while buckling them into the back seat. Before leaving, she looked at me like I had betrayed her. The police officer waited until her car disappeared down the street. Then he closed his notebook. "You're allowed to set boundaries," he said simply. I nodded. After he left, the house felt strangely quiet. My phone kept buzzing with new messages from family members asking what had happened. For the first time in years, I didn't rush to explain. I just set the phone down on the kitchen table. Sometimes the hardest part about saying no isn't the moment you say it. It's watching everyone realize you actually meant it.